English Forward presents.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
magic.
hello.
Are you ready to get going?
I am.
Good. I just want to introduce you to the guys listening. Today we're going to be chatting to Adrienne Ashley. She's the CEO of Loli and a social influencer with a global reach of over 100 million. Welcome to the English Forward podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Adrienne, it's an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to be chatting to you. And could you just tell us a little bit about where you are in the world?
Yes, sure. So I have been on social media since it first started. I was an early influencer on MySpace, transitioned over to Facebook, Twitter, and I am in blockchain, which I have been in actually blockchain since 2009. So I guess that makes me an OG. And several years ago, I started the journey to launch a blockchain-based dating app that incorporates digital ID and reputation in order to give certainty in a space where you have a lot of bots and fakes and scammers. So women need safety, security, and certainty to say yes, even to dinner. So in order to get them in the shower, shave their legs, and to dinner, I had to change the way dating apps are actually implemented.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I'm looking forward to chatting to you about it in a bit more depth. But your background is not in dating, is it? You've got a background as a asset protection specialist, certified report. I mean, it's completely different.
It's not exactly completely different. I was a certified divorce financial analyst, and I wrote the book Every Single Girl's Guide to Her Future Husband's Last Divorce, which basically, after analyzing 1,000 divorces, I realized I needed to help people stop dating the wrong people so that I could help reduce the divorce rate. But yes, my background actually is in computer technology. I used to break into banks for a living back when online banking first started. And before that, I built testing harnesses for artificial intelligence apps. And before that, I actually wrote HTML before the internet was born. So
Wow.
I have a long and varied history in lots of different things. And,
Yeah, it's quite a pedigree.
I'm a curious person, so I find myself interested in new things that nobody else has seen yet, and then I dive in deep and get good at it.
Okay, so if I'd ask you today, who is Adrienne Ashley and what does she stand for? What would you tell me?
That's a deep question. What do I stand for? It was funny. I would say I'm still on the same path of trying to reduce the divorce rate. What I really want is I want to bring honesty and transparency back to society. I mean, what's really interesting is we used to, at least in America, and I think the rest of the world, we had this kind of ethical concept in society that my word is my bond and a handshake is a contract. And I think we've moved away from that. And blockchain actually requires that we go back to that. Your keys are your keys. You lose them, you lose your stuff. So personal responsibility and self-reliance, I think, have been almost bred out of society, and blockchain is giving us the opportunity to bring that back. So I would say what I stand for is the restoration of a civil society.
That's a great ideal to uphold. Wow. Yeah,
I try. I mean, that's what I really want people to think about is, we have so many people who are like, if only they would do this or if only they would do that. It's like, well, what about you? How about we just start with ourselves and move from there? Because I think that's actually going to be the fastest way to get whatever it is that we want done as a people accomplished.
I agree with you. It's funny because a lot of the guys I chat to in blockchain have got the same sort of ideals, just wanting something better. And it's actually, that's what I love about the space, is that it's filled with people that are positive about creating a better future, which is awesome.
It's amazing. And the other part of that is this whole concept of a decentralized governance system. So, this is where I think we have the greatest opportunity. When you put things out there. So I'm going to get political for just a moment. So we have this problem in the United States where we have people challenging this idea of the electoral college. They're saying one person, one vote. And I'm like, well, that doesn't actually work the way that you think it works, because what the electoral college does is it separates out the actual power structure into all 50 states, and it requires that whoever is going to be governing all 50 states actually show up and talk to those people. And if you do one person, one vote, you're going to centralize power in 10 major US cities, and then everyone else has no voice. What I love about blockchain is the way that you can build in the tokenomics and build in the governance and allow for one person, one vote, but also to eliminate the ability to centralize power. And that's what I think is very cool. And these decentralized applications, what's so funny is I have a couple of partners in a couple of different projects that I've never met in person. I've been friends with these people for 10 years, and I've never met them physically in person.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
It's incredible. And being able to design systems where, you know, it really is the power of the people, and putting the responsibility for the governance of a community in the hands of the community is such a powerful concept. And I think it's a little bit frightening to the powers that be and the power structures that we have right now in society, because they're used to being able to do things a certain way and leverage things and get things done, you know, in backroom deals where 10 people sit down and decide what's going to happen for the entire globe. And I think that's wrong. I think we need to get to a point where we, the people, are put back in charge. And the other thing that blockchain allows is sovereignty. You know, when we're talking about millions of people in refugee camps with no identification,
absolutely,
and no way to even create a future, you know, blockchain, digital ID, and the ability to do commerce, that and take that with you as you move out of refugee camps and back into society. That is such a powerful thing, to give people ownership of themselves. I think it's fascinating, and I wish I could like have a glimpse 20 years into the future and see how that works out, because, you know, I see some resistance to it, and my thing is, you know, look, when you've got absolute certainty of identity, what's going to change? I mean, you're not going to be able to manipulate things, right? You have to own your words, you have to own your actions. And then what happens? I think society is better. I think everything is better at that point.
I agree with you. You know, with what I do in education, there's a lot of online education now, but the record keeping of the work that you've done is actually dismal, especially for people in developing or disadvantaged communities. And that sovereignty is unbelievable. You know, if you can put that power back in their hands, where they can, whatever they've learned, they've got a record of it, and they control who sees that record and how it gets used. I think it's a brilliant thing for the future. So certainly something that we're looking at.
I think it's fabulous. I think it's absolutely fabulous. And I do see things that are moving online. You know, what's the other issue that we have is, you know, college education takes, you know, $100,000. I know that's how much I spent on mine.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And you have people that are getting, you know, art history degrees for $150,000. And I'm like, well, that's a student loan that's never going to get paid back. So, you know, I love Udemy. I love we're going to get personal for a moment. My kid is ridiculously smart. I mean, ridiculous. At 12, he was invited to work on a NASA project building an elevator to the moon. At 8, one of the top science guys, you know, who discovered telomeres and, you know, the aging process and all that. He wanted to invest in my kid. He's like, I have no idea what he's going to do, but I want in. I mean, like, it's crazy.
How old is he now?
He's 16. And last year when I was in Lisbon at Web Summit, he was with his dad, and he dropped out of high school. Get this, because Elon Musk told him he didn't need a college education. And I was like, I'm still mad. That was November. We're now in June. I'm still mad, and I have not figured out how I'm going to fix this, because we had a plan. We actually moved from Reno to Denver because that was where he was going to go to college to get his degree in aerospace and mining because he wants to colonize Mars. And then Elon told him he doesn't need a college degree. And I was like, I packed up my life and moved to Colorado for my child to go to college there. And yet now you tell him he doesn't need to go to college. So we just moved back. But it was like, oh my God. But I mean, it's not that he's not right. He is right. But at the same time, he dropped out of college. He dropped out of high school. No, and I have no leg to stand on because so did I. And
they say that the best laid plans of mice and men, eh? Yes.
Yeah, well, when you're ridiculously smart, which I am, but traditional schooling doesn't work. And so I'm really feeling hopeful that this whole online education piece is good because now you have access. You know what was really cool? Stanford actually put every single one of their classes online. You can get a Stanford education. You can't get the piece of paper that you graduated from Stanford, but you could literally take every class online and get a Stanford education and for free. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that we have people who are motivated to be self-made, who are, self-directed learners. And I think we're finally developing the ability to give them a way to learn what they want to learn. And with blockchain, like what you were talking about with the credentialing with courses, we're going to be able to give them credit for what they've learned without having to spend 6 figures to get a piece of paper.
Absolutely. But I love it when you talk about your son because that's the future. Young guys that are fired up about doing something different. We're going to see a change. I mean, I subscribe to that. We homeschool our kids.
I homeschool my kid. And then I put him in public. I homeschooled him, since second grade. I mean, he did kindergarten and first grade in public school. He got bullied horribly. He's an Asperger's, ADHD, loud child who could do his entire coursework in 45 minutes. And then, so we did the online public school. So he'd do his whole traditional school, public school education in 45 minutes. And then the rest of the day, even in second grade, we were working on quantum physics and, aerospace engineering and all these other things that were what his sweet spot is, what he loves. And I was just making sure he got the basics. I'm like spending an hour or two a day on reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah, it was a bit like his mum.
Yeah, just a bit. Yes. Yeah, what do they say? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So, which is why I'm like, I have no leg to stand on. I asked his dad, I'm like, you said he could drop out of high school. I'm like, I can't say anything. I did. I have a PhD now, but I'm like, I can't say anything about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And he's going to probably go on and do something incredible for humanity. So
I hope so. So he's getting his GED this week, I think. Probably next week, actually. I don't think I can get him scheduled for this week. So he'll do that, and then he'll start. I'm going to make him go to college anyway. Now, I'm like, you can either get a job or you can go to college.
Yeah, well, a guy with a brain like that. My daughter actually did her GED last year.
Yep. And that's what I did, GED. It's
cool.
Because here's the thing, we now have an online education system where they can do all their general ed online super fast. They don't have to do, 2 years of boring stuff. They can probably pump that out in a couple of months, get all the general ed done, and then do the interesting classes that they actually like.
Yeah, but they're going to learn and excel in.
Yeah.
That's the point of education, isn't it?
For me, what was interesting is I find that public school is more about learning to the test, and I don't find that that's applicable in life. What I've told him is all I care about is that you know how to learn, how to find information, and how to solve problems. As long as you can find the answer to whatever question it is that you have and find a solution and you work your way through a problem, that's all the education that you need. You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to memorize all the answers. What you have to be able to do is find them. That's my key.
You're right. Those are such wise words. I tell you what.
Yeah.
You should probably apply for a role in education. Help solve some of the problems.
They actually wanted me to run for school board. I might actually do it. But this is an online thing, right? I can swear.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm the shit disturber. So the whole the whole idea with charter schools, I'm like, that's fine, but you can't make my kid take the standardized test that actually causes him so much stress. They threatened to lower his grade point average a whole point if he didn't take this standardized test, which if he was enrolled in a public school, he could opt out of, but in a charter school, he can't opt out of it. And they wanted him specifically to take the test because he scores so high. Like in second grade, he scored in a senior in high school. And in third grade, he scored in college. And since then, I mean, he's just always at the top of the testing scores. So they wanted that to bump their average. And so what I told him finally, when I'm like, look, I can't opt you out of this, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't stress about the test. And I don't care if you fail, because this doesn't go towards your GPA. So don't worry about it. And he was like, what? And I was like, don't even worry about it. Literally just go in, take the test, and don't care. And he went in, didn't care, didn't study, didn't even try, and still scored in the 95th percentile.
Amazing, eh?
Yeah. Well, he normally gets 99 and stresses if he's not perfect. And I'm like, don't stress, just do whatever. And he still got a 95.
Wow, that's excellent. That's lovely when your kids excel, isn't it?
Well, that was actually what the learning piece that I wanted him to learn was, you don't have to be perfect and don't stress when you're not. That was the one key piece that I was like, this is what I want you to learn this year, is that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to have a meltdown when you don't get 100. Because life, you're not always going to be perfect. And that is such a hard thing. We put so much pressure on our kids. I mean, no wonder they're having, mental health issues. Absolutely. There's just too much stress and pressure, right? So I think we need a whole life skills thing starting in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Coping, I mean, where we grew up in Marin, which I say is the hippie capital of the world, or the woo-woo capital of the world. Yeah. They had meditation and yoga starting in preschool.
Wow.
Like every class, like every year. I mean, every class they had meditation and yoga, because they were teaching the kids how to deal with stress and, and conflict and all this other stuff in a very woo-woo way, which I wish they would do it all over the world, because it was actually really effective. I'd watch my kids start to get stressed out, and he'd be like, downward dog. He'd like literally start doing yoga, and I was just laughing. He's like 5 years old, and like, that's a pretty good coping mechanism. Just keep that up.
Yeah, it's a great practice to learn, and to help you with focus and getting every day done.
Yeah,
really amazing. Do you do yoga?
I wish I did yoga. I don't. I should. I tried. I need to get my bendy back. I would say I'm more of a Pilates dancer than a yoga, because I grew up dancing, so that's really my stress relief. But yeah, I should do yoga. Every time I get stressed out, I should just do a headstand.
No, you're probably right. I was just looking through all the stuff that you've done. I mean, you've had an amazing career and background. I was looking at Wow Is Me. Are you still actively involved in that?
I am. And that generally focuses on especially reputation management in business. So my philosophy in Wow Is Me is all about attraction marketing and just making sure that what you're doing, number one, serves your passion. And number two, that you're finding the right clients, because not all money is good money. And I learned that the hard way. When I was going through a divorce, I took a client that should have raised red flags and didn't, and turned out to be an absolute psycho nightmare. And I try to help businesses to avoid those, because reputation is such a huge deal. I actually launched yelp-sucks.com 10 years ago. 11 years ago now. And it's like my philanthropy, because these businesses would call me at 2:00 in the morning and having just horrible experiences with Yelp, because they would have either the competitors writing negative reviews or they'd have a crazy customer distorting the facts. And there's really not a lot of, there's things you can do, obviously, but there's not a lot in the moment, when you're the person who's getting that feedback publicly and somebody's writing a review about you. It's like, a stab through the heart, because most of the time, if you're running a business, that's your baby. It's like, somebody's telling you your baby's ugly. It's awful. And you take it personally. And so, a lot of times I've had to really reset the way that people think. And I do that for celebrities as well. I had this one point that I do have actually a really fun background. So I do reputation stuff, and 3 o'clock in the morning, celebrity calls, and oops, I plugged my phone into my laptop and it hot synced all my photos from my phone to my Google Plus account. And I was like, this was a while ago when Google Plus was a thing. And I was like, all the
Uh-oh.
photos on your phone? And she's like, yeah. And I go, all the photos? And she goes, yes. Again, why are people having nude photos in their regular photo album instead of a locked, encrypted, secure photo album? I don't understand. However, there's a little 30-minute oh shit window, and we were able to take them down. But that was a fun, like, from dead sleep to hacking at 3 o'clock in the morning to fix something like that. And another time, another celebrity had sent nude photos to a long distance boyfriend who was then going to blackmail her with them. And I was like, okay, well, were there any candlesticks involved? She's like, what? I'm like, any objects inserted? She's like, no. And I was like, any animals involved? She's like, what? No. I was like, any children? She's like, God, no. And I'm like, well, you're drop dead gorgeous, almost 50, look like you're 30, have a rockin' bod, and you're a sexual human being, and that's actually okay. I had to literally reset her perspective because there was nothing I could do to stop him from releasing anything.
Yeah, nothing. But that's it. It's just the reset, hey? It's just the way people see themselves.
Right. And so that's a lot of the work that I do basically in marketing is helping people to own their awesome.
Okay. And tell me, did that naturally lead into Loli?
So no, Lolly was self-serving. So I got divorced in 2009. I was single for 9 years, celibate for 7 of those. I just last year had my first boyfriend after 9 years. I'm 50. He was 28. He had to convince me that that the age was not an issue. But he was great training wheels. And I went into it, saying, look, I've been single for 9 years. I have no idea how I'm going to be in a relationship. So full disclosure, here's how this could go well. It could not go well. So we did a cohabitation agreement with a graceful exit clause and lived together for 5 months. It was amazing. It was awesome. We traveled the world together and gracefully exited, and he's still one of my best friends. So I think that was successful. And now I have a boyfriend that I hope is going to be permanent. So that's the plan. But Lolly was born out of my frustration that 30% of the people who asked me out were married. And the last guy who asked me out on Match.com looked like Crack Santa. And the issue was, like, on Match, anybody can ask you out who's a member. They can message you, whether they're appropriate or not. On Bumble, so Tinder, every time I swipe yes, it's a yes. However, like, I went to Web Summit, I had a penthouse on the water, I had 24 condoms, I was trying to get laid, and I'm swiping, but I travel all over the world. So I'm having to swipe through every single person who's ever said yes to me before I can even get to Lisbon, which I never got to even after 1,000 swipes. Or you have to pay to move your marker there. And then the next year I paid, moved my marker there 2 weeks early, started trying to match with people, matched, still never met anybody in person. So in 5 years on Tinder, I met 5 people in real life. And I swear to God, one of them had bodies buried in the basement. I mean, it's just not a good ratio. So 1% of matches lead to actual meetings. Okay. It's like, it's crazy. And that's only 1% of actual matches. So imagine how many swipes. It's a huge waste of time. And then on Bumble, I believe, based on anecdotal evidence and personal experience, that they took the Tinder database, curated it to all the best profiles, because there are not 50 hedge fund managers and venture capitalists in Reno, Nevada. Trust me on this, they're not. There's maybe 2, and I know both of them, and they're married. So so every time I would swipe, I'm looking through here, and all the people that they're presenting me with look like Abercrombie and Fitch models, and their photos are perfect, and their profiles are perfect, and they are not here. It was absolute radio silence every time I would swipe. Like, nobody. It was a barren wasteland. And I think that that's a problem, because that makes people feel like, what's wrong with me? And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with me. It's the application. So why I built Lolly was to solve my problem. I need to know that the people that are on the platform are not married. That's the digital ID. I need to know that they're not psychopaths and have bodies buried in the basement. And that's the reputation piece. And we match based on sexual compatibility, because that financial and sexual incompatibility are the top two reasons for divorce. Again, it all goes back to my wanting to reduce the divorce rate, because it's 50% for first marriages, 70% for second marriages. And I think we can do better. But in order to do better, we have to start better, right? And so with women, you know, the most honest website is Adult Friend Finder, which people look at me like, you're on Adult Friend Finder? I'm like, it's the most honest website, right? But as a woman, when you log in, you're bombarded by a wall of cock shots. And that's just not comfortable for 90% of women are like, never going to go there. They're just not. And so what I had to build was a way to find that compatibility, and yet do it in a way that was G-rated. So we bucket you into ice cream flavors. So if I say a bubble gum and a rocky road don't go together, you kind of instinctively know that we're right without having to understand the naughty reasons why. And that makes it more comfortable. But this way, when we say you're a match, and you see that this person has a good reputation score and their identity is verified, you're more willing to go to dinner and give it a shot.
Yeah. I think one of the most difficult things in a person's life is you know, putting yourself out there and being able to connect socially and find the right person for a relationship. It really is exposing. If you get rejected, it's horrible.
It's horrible. But you know, the other piece of this is also, we don't know what's good for us, right? So my last boyfriend, 28 years old, looks like David Beckham in his youth. Looks better than David Beckham in his youth. Little skinny soccer, not skinny, muscular, but 150 pounds, 5'10", 150 pounds. And my type is that soccer type, 150, 180 pounds, about 5'10" to 6 feet, muscular, six-pack abs, like hot, right? So that's my type. My current boyfriend, in a million years, I would never have swiped yes to him. He is 5'10", 240, rugby sized. His arms are bigger than my legs. I don't date guys that muscular ever. That's too big for me. Like, that's not my physical type. And then on top of that, he's my 6th grade boyfriend's little brother. So once I dated in a pool, well, he's my 6th grade boyfriend's little brother. Known him for 38 years.
That's a long way back.
Yeah, we were friends on Facebook for 6 years while I lived in Reno, but I never saw him. I hadn't seen him in 38 years. This is a funny story, and it actually proves my whole Lally model. So I was going to this thing. It's called Man Swap, and it's on our roadmap, launching live events. And it's basically speed dating where all the men are vouched for by the women. And on the Lolly platform, they have the reputation, they have the staking and all of that. So this is the manual version of that, where all the men are brought by women. And then you fill out this questionnaire and the matchmaker matches you. And so I asked every single guy that I knew that I would vouch for in Reno, and nobody could go. So his divorce attorney is a dear friend of mine and super judgy, like super, super judgy. And she adores him, thinks he's great. And I'm like, well, she thinks he's great. He must be fantastic. So I sent him a message on Facebook. Again, I haven't seen him in 38 years. And I said, I know this is a long shot. I know you're divorced, but I don't know if you're single. And I have to go to this Man Swap thing on Saturday night and bring a tribute to my sisterhood. Do you want to go? And he said, yes. So we both fill out this questionnaire. We go. And I'm expecting that I'm bringing a great guy for my sisterhood, right? Mm-hmm. He's my gift to the girls, right? Mm-hmm. So we get there. And we say hi, and again, I haven't seen him in 38 years. We say hi and everything, and I'm not even looking at him like he's an option, because I've dated his brother, and he's not my physical type, and you know, whatever. And then he ends up on my match list, and I asked her, I said, I thought you weren't going to match us with the people that we brought. And she goes, well, I forgot you brought him, but you're 100% match.
Jeez, isn't that interesting?
I was like, what?
So what were the criteria?
We're 1,000% match. It's all about sentiment and personality and life goals and like building a life together. Like, do you have the potential to build a life together? And we totally do. We are like exactly perfectly matched. And again, physical type, he would not be my type, but I would say, holy mackerel, most compatible partner I've ever had in my entire life.
Isn't that
Ever.
incredible? So
It's incredible.
Yeah, you've taken those sort of ideas and built it in with AI and on the blockchain or what have you, and put it into your Loli app.
Yes. And then the other piece of it is that we started with is the consent piece, because we have this Me Too epidemic, and there's this he said, she said problem where people aren't communicating. And what I wanted to do was inspire fully transparent communication about what are we actually doing, right? Like, is this a one night stand, or is this leading to something more? Like, you know, and I found that a lot of the times when women have these problems, it's because they meet the men and they go, I'm going to marry him. Now, they haven't told him that, but they've decided that. And then they sleep with him, and then it doesn't work out in a couple of weeks. And then they change their mind about what happened because they were going to marry him. That's the only reason they said yes in the first place. So then that couldn't have been consensual, because you see where I'm going with this? Like, it's crazy. So the guys are like, hot girl, nice, great, let's get busy. Yeah. So the consent app really makes people have those conversations up front.
Have you got a use case for us?
That a use case? Well,
like just a hypothetical sort of example of how that consent would actually work in reality.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, you're at a bar and you meet someone and you decide you want to go home with them. Then you guys would open the consent window. You'd prove that you're not drunk, because when you're drunk, you can't actually legally consent. So if you are drunk, you have to go through this exception process. But you open the consent window, you have your fun. At the end, you close the consent window, because this is the other thing that most other consent apps don't do. They don't factor in that you can revoke consent at any time. And the reason that we did this is because in states like North Carolina, you actually can't. If you're a woman and you let him start, he has the right to finish, and it's not rape. Even if you are screaming, crying, and begging him to stop, that's not rape.
Horrific.
Right. So we have horrific laws in the United States, in places and all over the world, really. So what this does is it overlays a civil duty and contract, so that even if you cannot get them criminally, you can actually sue them for breach of contract. Because with using the consent app, they are agreeing to gracefully exit if consent is revoked. And so you open the consent window.
How would you revoke consent?
You say, I changed my mind.
Just verbally, you don't have to actually physically record it.
Well, okay, so there's multiple pieces to this. So yes, you do have to, you would basically end the consent window with I revoked and we gracefully exited. You actually score points for that, because the whole idea is that this is an ethical community, right? Everybody is agreeing to the community standards. So I'm hoping that will help reduce the whole asshole issue, and also the crazy bitches, because I'm not saying that it's all men. It's not. I would say it's equally men and women that are the problem. So we're trying to factor out all of those people and just reduce our community to people who are willing to live up to the community standards. And so I say it's for, you know, good girls and nice guys, because neither of them are getting any. The nice guys don't have enough game, and the good girls are home on Friday night. So, you know, nobody's getting any.
That makes 100% sense. It's having a community of people that are like-minded, that actually want to get the benefit out of the tech and what have you, in a real way, without trying to game it. And
exactly. So it's not about gaming the system. It's about having the community, and each community is actually its own decentralized autonomous governance system. So, you know, Chicago is different from Dallas, is different from San Francisco.
Yep.
Each of those cities have their own unique culture. And so when it comes to figuring out, you know, who did what, or making a decision about a user account, it doesn't go to corporate. Like, I mean, this is the whole thing with Yelp. You got somebody, I'm dealing with this right now, where you have someone in Salt Lake City wrote a review for a business in Reno, and which is completely wrong, because it's a local business. And they're like, yeah, I just called to get this. It's like, well, why would you call to get, you know, lip filler when you'd have to get on a plane that would cost more than getting lip filler in Salt Lake City. It's clearly on its face illegit and not a legitimate review, right? And yet Yelp is like, well, we can't prove that it's not legitimate. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's
That's
no
just common
logic.
sense.
It's common sense, right? Which is seriously missing in so many places. But because corporations are having to cover their ass and all that other stuff, what we've done is instead we've created these grand jury protocols that are siloed in their region, in their city. And that city decides amongst itself. So people are then, you know, they can volunteer to be on the grand jury. So then it just randomly chooses like-minded people. So it finds people who are similarly situated. So it's literally a jury of your peers who then decide, was this action right or wrong, and what to do about it. And that way the community polices itself. And that takes the onus off of the corporation, because that's part of what everybody's agreeing to, is that, you know, if you screw up, like, I'm sorry, but if you send dick pics, if you saw my phone, I have the collection of the most epic dick pics ever. And I do have to thank everyone, because thankfully they're not sending me bad ones. They're sending me really, really good ones. And I'm just like, I have so many naked people's pictures. It's ridiculous. And they're literally like, when you're single, I'm like, I don't ever plan on being single again. So they're like, but when you're single, by the way, this is waiting for you. And I'm just like, oh my God. And they're all under 30. I don't even know what's up with that, but it's, you know, it's eye candy, that's for sure. But sending that over the app is actually not allowed. So there's, you know, that's not what the app is for. And
so tell me, with the app, how do you onboard somebody? So if you've got quite a tight controlled community and you're trying to maintain the integrity of it, how does someone actually join?
You have to be referred in. So we're launching the consent app first, and anyone can use it, because this was the whole question. Everybody was like, well, what about LGBTQ and what about poly people? And I was like, oh dear Lord, do you know how hard it is to get into a heterosexual woman's brain and figure that out? Yes. Let me start there. That is 70% of the single women in the United States right now. That's my market. 70% of the women on traditional dating apps right now in the United States have been unwillingly celibate for more than a year. Yeah. And that is not because they don't want to. Trust me, they want to.
you know, the funny thing, I was sitting thinking, and I had a look through the app and the website and what have you, and I thought, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in one of your Loli brainstorming sessions.
I pitch this, I swear to God, every time I do a pitch, like I am pinned to the wall with women afterwards. And they're like, where do I get the app? Where do I download it? How do I get on this? And they come up and they're like, 3 years. It's been 3 years. And I'm just like, every one of them. And these are all amazing, fabulous women. They want a boyfriend. They want to have sex, but they need safety, security, and certainty to say yes. And they got none of that in any of the apps. It's none of it. And so that's what we built in. We built this for women. Our team is 90% women. We have 5 PhDs, from clinical sexologists to behaviorists. We have one woman, her entire thesis is on what women want throughout their menstrual cycle. Because sometimes during the month, sometimes you want Tarzan, sometimes you want a poet. And when we're matching you up with people in the moment, we know where you are on your cycle. And we know Tarzan would be more appropriate right now, or a poet would be more appropriate right now. And we're going to skew our recommendations that way. I mean, it's really that personalized. That's the whole point. That's what the AI does. And the concept for that is we want orgasms. We have this epidemic of women not having orgasms. And I got to tell you, I believe 80% of it is all the messed up stuff in our heads. It is exactly all right. That. And that's what we unwind that. So I did this nationally broadcast talk show called Wake Up, and it was astonishing. We grew 20% week over week with no advertising at all. And it was because every hour that women watched, they felt better about themselves at the end of that hour. They were like, we talked about stuff that you only talk about with your best, smartest girlfriends after a couple mimosas at brunch. Like the things that you feel so much shame about, that you think you're the only one. And yet you're not the only one. There are millions of people similarly situated, and yet nobody's having those conversations. So we talk about the things that you literally start spinning in your head over, and get it out of the head, and give solutions, and make people start feeling better and less shame. And, it's all, and then sex ed, good God. Right. On one of my apps, I was dying. I posted this on Facebook the other day. On one of my apps, they had a survey about what birth control you use. Right.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the 80s in, the HIV epidemic, and I have been condom queen forever. Like, I grew up in San Francisco, Bay Area. So like, we had condom mania. Like, I went to the store that had 5,000 different kinds of condoms. So like, let's make it fun. Like, the whole thing. I always have them. Even when I was celibate, I carried around condoms. I literally hand them out like candy. I make sure everybody has them, right? Safe sex. Oh my God. 53% of the women who responded to this thing, 53% use no birth control.
Jeez. In this day and
53%.
age.
In this day and age. I'm like, holy shit. Only 23% use condoms. I was like, are you kidding me? Now, I understand the 53% that don't use condoms, or that don't use any birth control. Okay. How many of them have already gone through menopause? How many of them are lesbians and don't need to? But even then, okay. So that number probably isn't quite as big as that, but that's still a ridiculously huge number. Huge number.
It is massive.
And it's massive. And I was like, okay, I think we need to have a revitalization of this whole safe sex conversation, because I think it's gone by the wayside. I think we're not having enough of it. So that's part of what we do in the app. Is it's a lot of personal development, not just because
what I'm hearing, which I really like, Adrian, is the education side of it, because it really is educating people, and all of us with relationships. It's all about confidence and moving forward, with confidence with your partner and what have you. So it's but also that.
Finding the right partner, right? And here's part of finding the right partner is finding yourself, right? If you don't know what you want, oh my God, I cannot tell you. We have a 1,000 women focus group. I cannot tell you how many of them, and I did it too, either did or almost burst into tears at the question of, what do you really want? Like, that question. Oh my God. And that my 28-year-old boyfriend, who is one of my best friends. I mean, we did it right. We did everything right. And it was exactly what I needed, because I could not answer that question. I had no idea what I really wanted. And I, if you can't see it, you can't have it. Right. And so that relationship gave me so many pieces of, I really like this. I really want this. I need this. And, oh, I definitely don't want that. Right. Like it was great, because he has things I want and I don't want. But what was great was it allowed me to actually identify those pieces, so that when I met my current boyfriend, I actually could identify, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. And I would never have recognized that before. And so part of the process, we actually have reward tokens. You get rewarded for upkeep of the community, but you also get rewarded for education and personal development. And I think that leads to better relationships. And the more success that we have, like, what's interesting is eHarmony has you go through this whole, all these questions and go through their process and all that, but they're not actually altering who you are and where you're at. And I think that's the mistake. Right? I think that you have to be willing to do the hard work on yourself before you're going to be ready for the right partner and ready for a long-term relationship. And I think those are the conversations that people aren't having. It's like, if you're a hot mess, maybe don't actually date. Like, when I first got divorced, when I first separated, I found a boy toy. It was right before I got divorced. And because we broke up in January, and then we filed for divorce, and we are actually divorced just after that. And I had a boy toy. He had just had a stroke, so he could barely put a sentence together. But We were very physically compatible, and he was a rehab counselor, so he was a great listener. And I did not have the capacity to have a relationship, but I needed the physical connection.
Yeah.
And so we were absolutely in the right place for each other at that time, and had a monogamous, non-committal relationship for 18 months. You know, it was what I needed at that time. And I couldn't have a relationship because I wasn't capable. I wasn't worthy. I wouldn't have been a worthy partner for somebody else. I had my own stuff I had to get through. And so that was the healthiest thing I could do at the time. And I think that was useful. And I don't see other people taking the time to do that personal work. And part of what Lolly can do is help you find that matching person who's in the same place where you need that safe physical connection, even if they're not your long-term perfect person, but you can have that safe, trusted partner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because and obviously I don't know the I asked about the onboarding, because there's obviously a series of questions and things that you need to do to get to a point where your record is thorough enough to find a compatible match that ultimately will lead to a meaningful relationship.
That's very true.
Yeah.
We also, well, what we have is, we can, it's amazing what Facebook and Google know about you. What I find funny is, so it's FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google.
Yeah.
Netflix, I trained myself because I would rate all these movies, and I've rated thousands of movies. So it knows what I like to watch, and it's pretty accurate. Amazon keeps sending, I'm a Vine reviewer on Amazon, so they send me free stuff to review. And they keep sending me or offering me, baby strollers and bottles. And, and I'm just like, I am 50 and I'm not going to have another baby. I don't know why you keep sending me this stuff. And it's like Mother Nature is going, have one more. I'm like, no. I need my tubes tied like right now. I need a sponsor to go pay for my tubes tying because my health insurance doesn't cover it. And so it's a whole nother story. But what they know about you is very easy when you ask during the onboarding process, can we have this data? And you reward them with tokens that they can then spend on in-app purchases for upgrades. They're willing to give you that data because that data is going to get them better matches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you do go on dates and you rate the other person, it's not a public rating. It's literally feedback for the AI on how good our matching was, right? How accurate was their profile? And then how good was our matching of you to that person, right? Like how was the chemistry, and really what's interesting is even just the publicly available information. What I found is communication is the key to sexual compatibility. So when we say a rocky road and a bubblegum don't go together, said more naughty, a dirty talker should not be in bed with someone who needs a mind reader, because the minute that the dirty talker says something dirty, she dries up and she's done.
Yeah.
So you can't put those two people together because it will never be a good coupling. They may have a ton in common. And the reason I know this is because I once dated a lawyer. We had been friends for 2 years. He's amazing, drop dead gorgeous, totally my physical type. I mean, just beautiful, brilliant. Because I'm sapiosexual. So I mean, if you're not smart, you're not even you're not even in the running, right? So you have to be brilliant to begin with, and then if you're beautiful on top of that, great. But then the problem was when it finally came time to do the deed. He couldn't get it up if I couldn't smack bubblegum in his ear. And it's a thing. It was a thing. It was a thing that I couldn't actually get over. It was an incompatibility. So it never worked. It never went anywhere. And I'm hoping he found someone because he's truly an exceptional person. And again, brilliant and drop dead gorgeous. So nice package, but he had a thing and it was an incompatible thing. Right. And those are the kinds of things where if you know ahead of time that there's an incompatibility, then you should just not match those people. And that's really what we're going after. Our app is not about matching you with the maximum number of people. It's actually exclusionary. We are culling the field of all.
That's what it should be.
Right. So
yeah, that's excellent.
With Tinder and Bumble, you know, they're giving you every possibility and expecting you to do the sort. Yeah. And trust me when I tell you that you can't sort for yourself. You shouldn't sort for yourself because number one, you don't know what's right for you. I didn't. I literally proved my model because the matchmaker matched me. I didn't pick him. I did not pick my boyfriend. I would never have picked him. And he's perfect for me. And I would never have picked him, and I would have missed out. And that's what I think is such a crucial conversation, is just because somebody isn't your physical type doesn't mean they're not your perfect match.
Yoch, I tell you what, it's such an interesting topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And before I did this, I actually got sucked into politics, and that was not fun, and it was very polarizing, and you know, and I was just like, okay, this cycle, because we're just heading into the new cycle. I'm like, this cycle, I'm gonna stick with orgasms. I'm staying in my lane because my lane is fun. Yeah, and happy. So they keep trying to pull me back into politics. I'm like, no, I'm sticking with sex. I'm sex in the blockchain. That's where I'm at. I'm going to put blinders on and stay on sex in the blockchain.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I think you're onto a good thing, and certainly something that can solve a lot of problems for people. So keep going.
Thank you. I plan to try to. So this is the plan, and we're just about going into our raise because we're raising to build out the entire community, and that's where we're at right now. And this, what's really fascinating to me is this whole concept of ICOs. Like, you can't do an ICO unless the platform is already built. And so that's like a chicken and the egg at this point. And the whole crowdfunding thing is interesting. But you can only raise $1 million. So then it's, you know, it makes it to the whole concept of doing a token to build a project, right? Like, that was the point, was to be able to give people the ability to back ideas. And unfortunately, you had a lot of scammers who, you know, wrote up a white paper they never had any plans on executing. I've been added to, I cannot tell you how many projects without my permission. And Andreas Antonopoulos and I think we're like the top 2 most unethically added to projects people, and also added to conferences. So like, now he's naming and shaming. So on Twitter, you know, he's like, are you going to this conference? I'm like, nope. And he's like, okay, there we go. Like, because we're on there. They literally have us on there as we're speaking at this conference. I'm like, I didn't know I was speaking at that conference. Where's my first class ticket and my hotel? Like, I clearly don't know I'm speaking at this conference. And so people add us to their white papers, and they add us to their conference schedules all the time without asking. And it's hard because as an influencer, I've literally spent the last 18 months going around the world teaching hedge funds and family offices how to do due diligence in crypto. And one of the key things is you look at who are the advisors, who are the listed people who are on this, and then you reach out and you make sure that they are actually attached to this project. Because
exactly right. That's not just a figurehead.
Right. That's the fastest way to vet projects, because I would say 90% of the time there are advisor agreements in place. And it's easy to just kick that one to the curb because their I's are not dotted, their T's are not crossed.
Yeah, well, listen, good luck with the funding, because you've got everything else. You've got a beautiful product that's absolutely needed in the world. You've certainly got the connections and the reach to, you know, get the right people on board and to get the marketing done and get the adoption. And you put the money together with that, and you've got a winning solution.
Thank you. I'm excited. I think it is what's needed. I built it for myself. We've actually built it twice and torn it down. We're in the process of building it again correctly. The first 2 times I tried to bootstrap it. That's why we're doing the raise, is I tried to bootstrap it, which is what I've always done. I literally, I hack, I code, I do what's necessary And I built an MVP twice for very little money out of my own pocket. I shouldn't say very little money because I'm several $100,000 into it.
Yeah.
And
it's never
over
little
3
money.
years, that's very little money in the grand scheme of things when it comes
It
to
depends
application
on the
development.
perspective.
Yes, but the last time that we built the thing and I opened it up to an alpha in New York, we did an alpha launch and we had 50,000 people register in 3 days. So
Wow.
that was when I realized that the onboarding process was wrong.
Yeah.
When I realized all the people who of the people who registered and I started going through it, I was like, uh-oh, asshole douchebag, crazy ass bitch. Like, whoops. Okay, my onboarding process was flawed.
Yeah.
So we took it down because we had done a freemium model. You can't do that. You're not going to get the quality of people when you do the freemium model, which is why a lot of these applications have so many fake profiles, because they're not paying. There's no verification of identity, and you've got scammers and bots registering, and it's just like, nope, can't do that. So back to the drawing board, and that's why now there's a vouching system, and there's a whole reputation piece that goes into it. So there's a whole different layout now that nobody else is doing. And we do the entire life cycle of the consumer. So we have them from dating through engagement, through marriage, and then through parenting and all the way to their 50+ year wedding anniversary.
That's pretty good.
Right. Because I want them throughout the whole thing. The way that the dating apps currently work is they want you to pay a monthly fee. So if I am a dating app and I want you to pay a monthly fee to be on my dating app, is it in my best interest for my bottom line for you to find love? No. So you're at odds. It's the same thing with Yelp. They want the businesses to pay for advertising, and yet they don't want the businesses to solicit their customers for reviews. It's at odds. Like, they're torturing businesses and want businesses to pay them. It doesn't work. So the business model has to actually work for the consumers who are paying that money. And that's how we've designed this system to be of benefit to them for a lifetime.
I read through the white paper. I must have missed that part of it, but I think it's very interesting. I'm going to read it again.
Yeah, well, there are pieces to that, and the white paper is being updated because we have a couple of secret things that we're working on right now that we're going to announce in probably 2 to 3 months. We have a couple of products that are going to be launched that will explain everything. It'll make perfect sense. So I actually just teased a little bit here. You're the first one I've actually opened my mouth and said that to. I don't know if I was supposed to. I hope I don't get in trouble with the board. But we are a lifestyle product that actually is for the entire continuity of the consumer.
I love it. I think you're onto a winner. So it's good luck with it. Yeah,
Thank you.
And I know you've got to shoot off to a meeting. I just want to say thanks.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Really appreciate the time, and I hope it all works out with your boyfriend. It sounds like a perfect match, and all the best to both of you.
Thank you.
Great. Nice chatting.
Bye-bye.
You were listening to an English Forward production, the web's largest Learn English community and Q&A site. Everything you need to understand and improve your English. Visit EnglishForward.com.